Hello, my name is Boryana Dimitrova. I'm the owner of Black Sea Advanced Marketing Solutions, where we help entrepreneurs build a very strong business foundation that helps them better connect with their customers authentically on a deeper level. In these videos, I will go over the keys to establishing a strong business foundation for your entrepreneurial endeavor, regardless of what industry you're in, how big you are. Really, this is mostly for people who are starting out or possibly considering rebranding. So let's jump in. What is the purpose of a business? I've borrowed this from Sir Richard Branson, who is a very famous serial entrepreneur over in the UK. He has a variety of different businesses in multiple industries. His brand is Virgin, and you may have heard of Virgin Records, Virgin Mobile, Virgin Atlantic, Virgin America, Virgin Cruise Lines. And this is a quote that I took from one of his books titled Like a Virgin, in which he goes over some of the keys to success, or at least the things that have helped him while building his own business empire, because that's what the Virgin brand is nowadays. And this is also something that I preach to my marketing for new ventures students at Drexel. One of the topics that I'll go over now are also things that I do emphasize to my marketing for new ventures class and really across the board to all my students, because especially in my marketing for new ventures class, students have to come up with a new business idea and develop it throughout the course of the term, the 10 weeks that we have at Drexel. And I always tell them that it's not just about your bottom line. You really need to have a higher purpose and a bigger reason why you started the business. That being said, I'm not saying that money is not important. Obviously, if you don't make money, you cannot operate as a business. But what I'm saying is that when you have the right mindset, the right attitude, the right reason why you are trying to make a difference in people's lives, customers will be coming to you sooner rather than later. Obviously, when you start building your business up, acquiring new clients can be a little bit more challenging, but once you get the ball rolling, things happen when you do the right thing. And what this quote says is building a business is all about doing something to be proud of, bringing talented people together and creating something that's going to make a real difference to other people's lives. And this means that you're taking care of your customers, you're taking care of your employees, you're taking care of the environment, you're contributing to the community you're in. And I really hope that this sinks in. Once again, do not ignore the fact that you have to make money, but also think about why you're starting this business, what it is that you're passionate about, and how do you hope to make a difference. And I will just share my story very quickly for those of you who may not be familiar with it. I came to the States to go to undergraduate, to college, to get an undergraduate degree. And I stumbled upon an amazing advisor who convinced me to get a PhD. Long story short, after I did an internship and I realized that that's not what I wanted to do when I grow up, work in a corporate environment, in an office environment. I decided to go with the what at first seemed like a crazy idea, getting my PhD. And I have studied marketing for over 20 years. I've done research. Now I teach full time as of the last 11, 12 years at this point, 12 years. And I'll tell you this, when I started studying marketing at St. Peter's University, which is where I went for my undergraduate degree, we were taught about the little tricks that marketers play on consumers to convince them to buy products and services that they were selling. So very much manipulation, consumer manipulation into buying things and services that maybe they don't even need. And unfortunately, that's the common misconception about marketing. Since I had my kids, I realized that there are so many brands out there that we just haven't heard of. I am doing my best educating my students about them. Brands such as Brunch Basics, Seven Sunday Cereal, Primarily Pure, Inner Sense Organic Beauty, The Honest Company, and the list goes on and on. Bumble Right. This is a brand that makes baby strollers. So if you're not a parent, you probably haven't heard of them. But all of these brands are really set to make a difference in some way in their customers' lives, in the lives of their employees. They have or really consider their impact on the environment and the communities that they operate in. And that got me thinking that marketing is not about manipulating customers only. And there are brands that do that, but I really do my best to teach my students to stay away from working for those brands or buying from them. And we have seen a shift in consumption behavior where consumers are increasingly becoming more aware and conscious of what they consume, who they support, or who they buy from. And those bigger brands that have proven time and time again that they truly don't care about their customers and they're only concerned with their bottom line are slowly but surely starting to suffer. And I think we'll see a future shift where the less known brands that I just pointed out to, a few of them only, they're going to emerge and they're going to take over. And hopefully, some of them don't get bought by giant companies because this has happened. Another brand that we love, for example, Siete Foods, they recently got bought by Pepsi. Thankfully, the products have not been changed. I hope that stays true for the future, but you never know. And so when you're thinking about the purpose of the business that you're establishing or you're currently running, have you thought about your reason why? And do you communicate this very clearly to your consumers in any shape and form, whether it's your social media content, whether it's print uh, materials that you may be putting out? Is it your website? Are you doing a good job communicating what your big reason why is? In terms of the value proposition, you have to emphasize. So, first of all, what is the value proposition? That really is what helps you stand out from your competitors. And you're telling your customers what's in it for them to buy from you instead of competitive offerings. You do need to emphasize the following: the points of differentiation, or what we refer to as the PODs for short, benefits to the consumer, and you really need to focus on customer oriented value and offer customization. I'll give a quick example. It's not from the healthiest brand, but I like to give it as an example because it's a very extreme example and it can usually resonate with my students. Let's talk about M&Ms. Do not eat M&Ms. However, they do allow you to customize your M&Ms for special events. For it could be for company. I've been to campus visits when I was interviewing for faculty positions where they'll give you a bag of goodies when you're done with your campus visit. And one of the schools I visited had a little bag with M&Ms with their logo and color. So it's cool, right? And if you can allow companies or consumers, sorry, to customize something like the little M&Ms, that means you can allow them to customize other products or services. If you are a business that offers home organization services, are you working closely with your customers so that the project that they're paying for is up to their needs and expectations and really what they need in their house? These are the kind of questions that you need to ask yourself. And at the end of the day, why is the value proposition so important? And why should you spend a significant amount of time thinking about what your value proposition is because once again, this is what's going to set you apart from your competition. And this is how your value proposition is how you communicate to your customers why they should buy from you. The value that you deliver must be important to the customer, unique and hard to copy, and strong enough to initiate positive word of mouth. Before I actually jump into this, something that I forgot to mention when I went over the earlier slide. Unfortunately, when people think about branding, when they're starting their own business, they really get excited about the logo and the slogan, colors, fonts, but this is secondary. Really, what you need to go through and think about deeply is your value proposition, your points of differentiation, the benefits that you're providing to the consumers. What are those benefits, and how, by taking all of that into consideration, you can communicate this through your logo. There's a story behind my logo, behind the name of my business that you can read more about on my website. But I didn't just come up with it out of the blue. There is a deeper reason why I chose that name and that logo, and I decided to incorporate the Black Sea aspect into my business, the name of my business. So let's go back to this, the value you deliver. When we say important to the customer, what does that mean? Do customers, for example, care about lower price if that's your main selling proposition? So that's another term that you may have or may not have heard of, but this is really your core differentiator. What is your main selling proposition? Is it that you offer a lower price? Is it that you're a family-owned company, or maybe you're a Black-owned, family-owned? These are things that we have seen emerge more recently as differentiators for a variety of businesses. What do you do that really the customers would care about? And if the price is not important, then why are you focused on pricing? You really need to do your market research and figure this out. And I'll give you a quick example from Warby Parker. Warby Parker is now a bigger company, but they once were one of those entrepreneurial endeavors that a journey that a lot of us are on right now. And when they started, the issue that they ran into, it was three Wharton students who were getting their MBAs, and one of them broke his glasses. He needed a new pair of glasses, but they weren't working full time at the time. They were full time MBA students paying for a pretty expensive education, and they didn't have a lot of money. And the price of glasses was inhibitive to really getting a new pair of glasses for that one partner who broke their glasses. And they started thinking, why should glasses be so expensive? They did a year and a half of research to find out that the market for glasses is a monopoly that's monopolized by a company called Luxottica. And you know what happens in a monopoly? Supply is limited, so prices go up. And they said, well, how can we solve that problem? Because that's a serious problem. People do need glasses to function if you wear glasses, and price could be an inhibitive factor. Nobody wants to spend a fortune on a pair of glasses, even though they are an important tool for their daily lives. And they said, well, we're going to do a direct to consumer model, and that's how we're going to eliminate the middleman and reduce some of that cost that would usually be carried into a retail outlet and offer the glasses for free. So just to, I will talk about this later in case this is something you're not familiar with. Anytime you do an indirect distribution channel, such as you go through a wholesaler, you may go through an agent and broker, or a wholesaler or a retailer, the more layers you add on to your product, the more expensive the product gets. So usually the direct to consumer model is where you can cut your costs and allow customers to buy a product at a lower cost. So that's exactly what Warby Parker did. They were selling direct to consumer exclusively through their website. Eventually, they opened their own retail stores. And so they solved an important to the customer problem. I have plenty of students who do buy from Warby Parker. They love their frames, they love their glasses, they do love the customer service, the fact that you can even try glasses on through their app, through their there's an augmented reality function on the app which allows you to try glasses right there or frames. And all of these things just make buying of glasses a much more pleasant experience. And most importantly, your glasses are not that expensive. The value that you deliver must be unique and hard to copy. So a direct to consumer model is not very hard to copy if you think about it. What would set you apart is outstanding customer service, your purpose, your reason why. The fact that in the case of Warby Parker, the company was started by three friends. If you're not a business that started by friends, maybe you're a family-owned business, and this is what sets you apart. But remember that tools such as your price, your product, your distribution strategy, promotion strategy, what we refer to as the 4 Ps in marketing: product, price, promotion, and place. These are things that can be fairly easily copied by competitors. What cannot be copied is your people, the people within your organization, the relationships that you have built with your employees, with your partners, such as wholesaler retailers, if this is the route that you decide to go at some point. And this is where you need to focus most of your efforts on, really making sure that your employees are trained about your values, about how you want your customers to be treated. At the end of the day, your employees, unless you are interacting with customers on a daily basis, which in some businesses that's the case, but if that's not the case, then your employees, your frontline employees, are the ones who interact with the consumers on a daily basis, and they are the business in the face of the customer. It's not you, it's your employee. So remember that. Strong enough to initiate positive word of mouth. First of all, keep in mind that it's always cheaper to keep your existing customers, turn them into loyal customers who keep coming back, turn them into customers who become your brand advocates and they bring in customers for you through referrals, then going out and acquiring new customers. So you have to do everything in your power within reason where you keep your customers happy, coming back, and so happy and with your offering that they are start to share this with family and friends. And like I said, this should turn into a snowball effect where you will not need to spend as much time and also resources in terms of money on your marketing. Does your product help solve an important to the consumer problem? What you need to think is, what is your offering, to whom you're offering it, so who is your ideal customer and why, and how will you sell your product? I went over distribution channels. Keep in mind that whenever you keep everything in-house, meaning direct to consumer, or you decide to go the retail route, but you own your own retail stores, you have much more creative control over your brand, how your brand is represented. Going back to the idea of your people, your employees are really your powerhouse because they interact with customers. When you own your own retail stores, or when you're in general direct to consumer, you have much more control over this versus allowing a company such as Sephora, if you're a beauty product, to carry your products, which obviously does not come right at the beginning. It may come down the line, but it can serve a great purpose where it gives you more reach, but it has disadvantages because you don't have as much control over your brand. And I will go over all of these points in the next few slides. One thing that I want to note is that I talked about Sir Richard Branson, and I highly recommend this brand, his book, Like a Virgin, if you want to learn from him. There are also YouTube videos, interviews with him. And One thing that really stood out for me when I was reading the book is that he said that outstanding customer service is something that permeates every single one of his businesses. The businesses that he owns are in a variety of different industries. That's very unconventional in general. Some of them are business to consumer or B2C businesses, and others are business to business or B2B. But regardless, he always emphasizes the importance of outstanding customer service. And in the book, he said that he makes an effort that whenever he visits one of his businesses, he meets not just with top management, he meets with middle management, and he meets with frontline employees to make sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to how customers are being treated and how offerings are being distributed and presented to consumers. So keep that in mind. Another book that I want to highly, highly recommend, it's called Owing Startup by Diana Kender. And this is a book that I've read twice. Every time there's something different, like an aha moment that maybe I missed the time before. And Diana Kender does a great job writing a book for entrepreneurs in a novel form. So, really, the book is a novel. It's not one of your dry business books where this you need to, as an entrepreneur, these are the things that you need to do to be successful, and this is how you do them. Not really. It's there's a story and there's twists and turns, and it's very interesting. And throughout all of this, she inserts very valuable lessons for entrepreneurs. What that book came down to, I'm not going to give you out too much in case you decide to read it, is that the problem that the owner of the business, so the owner of the business is the main character in the book, that he was trying to solve was not an important to the consumer problem. It had to do with pricing. He thought that pricing is important for that product category. It turned out it was not. So his whole business model, his assumptions went down the drain and he had to start from scratch. And that is something that he uncovered through market research that he didn't put the effort into doing at the beginning of his entrepreneurial endeavor. So keep that in mind. How to uncover customer problems. So the most important thing here to remember is that do not ask customers what they want because they usually don't know. Steve Jobs used to say that it's not the customer job to know what they want. It's really your job as a company to uncover needs and to find gaps in the market that you can fill by creating products that your customers didn't even know that they wanted. So think about this. Did we ever say we want a smartphone and we want a tablet and we want a phone really that has a camera in it that you can obviously call and message? The camera keeps improving, right? So it's good for, you can do it for, use it for a variety of different purposes, whether it's for leisure to take pictures and videos of your kids to remember one day when they grow up, or for content creation. You can listen to music, you can watch videos, it's everything into that smartphone. We didn't say we wanted that. That's something that Apple discovered through their own research and development. And once again, they were not asking customers. They still did research on the market. They did customer research, but the research did not involve asking, what do you want? It was, they were asking questions to uncover the current desires, frustrations, needs, expectations of customers. And I'll get to that in the next slide. I shared here a very cool TED Talk that one of my colleagues shared with me a while back. It's called On Spaghetti Sauce by Malcolm Gladwell. If you don't know who he is, a Canadian author. He has written some pretty powerful books that actually are very helpful for entrepreneurs as well. And in this TED Talk, it's about 20 minutes if you decide to watch it. I'm not going to give you too much, but what it comes down to is that when you ask customers what they want, they usually cannot tell you until they see the product right in front of them. So you can think about this, you can contemplate what that means for your business, but you need to remember that just asking customers what they want is not the way to go about uncovering how you can help them and what their real problems are. Instead, you need to ask questions. What makes customers feel frustrated and annoyed? What requires too much time, effort, or nerves? What costs too much? And how much is too much? What are they afraid to lose or not to achieve? What's lacking in current value propositions on the market? What features and benefits are missing? What are the barriers that might keep customers away from adopting a new product or service? Are there investments of money, time, effort, and effort needed, and you can read the rest. But these are the kind of questions that you can ask your customers. And when they give you an answer to that question and you want to know more, then ask more and go one level deeper and deeper and deeper until you come to the answer that will probably or hopefully help you with really identifying what is the problem that you're solving, how important it is for the consumer, and what your value proposition should be in order for you to stand out. What you need to focus on is migraine problems and not headache problems. That's something that I have borrowed from Diana Kender from that book, Owing Startup. And I'll give you three examples. I picked things that have to do with safety when it comes to little kids. Those of you who are parents would probably relate. When you have little tiny humans running around thinking that they're actually adults, but they don't know that if they don't pay attention going down the steps, it can lead to a serious injury, or if they fall out of a bunk bed, or the high chair situation is more so for parents. So I'll talk about this. Let's start with the bunk beds. You know that whenever you transition kids to a bunk bed, especially if they're more of a like at a younger age, there's always the fear of what if they fall out of the second bed, the one up top. And in order to solve that problem, companies that do manufacture bunk beds in general decided with this low bunk bed model, which I actually didn't know about until I became a parent and started considering getting bunk beds for my kids. But that gives you, I'm not saying that they're not gonna necessarily fall out. It does not solve the problem. What the problem that they solve is that it's not gonna be from us high up. So it gives you a little bit of a peace in mind, a peace of mind. So that's something that is a migraine problem for parents, or could be, depending on how young their kids are when they're being transitioned to a bunk bed. And as I said, furniture companies that offer this piece of furniture have come up with a solution to offer that low bunk bed. Second, baby gates. That's huge, especially if you have steps in your house, plenty of them. You know that kids don't always pay attention. So what you're looking for in a baby gate is something that's sturdy, something that maybe if you have different distances from in different steps or areas in your house, you want to be able to adjust the gate according to the distance that it needs to cover to whether it's block the steps or block an area in your house where you don't want your kid to have an access to. I've heard people do that with Christmas trees, because what if the tree falls on top of a toddler trying to pull Christmas ornament off of it? And like I said, you want something that's sturdy. So that's another migraine problem. And you don't want this baby gate to easily open, because those tiny little humans can figure it out very quickly. Mine did, to the point where we had like grown-ups come, like friends and family visit our house, and they were like, how do you open this gate? But my kids knew how to open it before the adults could figure it out. And finally, high chairs. I've gone through three high chairs for my kids, and I didn't love everything. I really like hated actually the first two, and the third one It was okay in terms of it didn't have a lot of crevices, so made cleaning a little bit easier, but there were other things that I didn't like about this. So the Mockingbird is a brand that does make baby gear, and they started with a stroller that converts from single to double. And they more recently, like in the past, like I want to say 2023, they came up with this Mockingbird high chair. On their website, when you go, they advertise it or promote it as being designed by parents for parents. And these are their four main selling propositions: that it is space savvy, especially if you have multiple kids around, you don't want these high chairs taking up too much space. It is highly adjustable, so you can use it for a few years. So maybe it converts from this high chair to a chair that you can pull up to a regular table, a dining table. It is super easy to clean, which to me is one of the most important features for a high chair. And you get a 30-day at-home trial. And if you don't like it, you can always return it. For me, like I said, the most migraine problem of all here is the easiness to clean. Because if you have two kids in a high chair, which I did at some point, cleaning those high chair can become quite a burdensome task at the end of the day, in particular when you're dead tired and there's rice or crumbs or little food pieces stuck all over the high chair. Once again, do you know what the migraine problems are that you're solving and not so much the headache problems? And back to the Owen startup book, without giving out too much, what turned out for the entrepreneur who is the main character is that the price of the product that he was offering, while he was striving to offer a lower price, that turned to be a headache problem for consumers and not a migraine problem. And that's why he wasn't able to acquire customers, which is a huge issue, right? So you invested all that time and money, and it looks like the problem you're trying to solve is not a real problem that customers really care about solving. You have to do competitive analysis. That being said, you shouldn't be obsessed with your competitors, but you should know what they're doing. Maybe keep an eye on things that don't go so well for them. If you have contemplated on implementing a similar tactic or strategy. So that's really more so competitive intelligence and be more obsessed with your customers. But like I said, you do need to know what the competitors are doing. There may be times when a collaboration with your competitor may also make sense. That's up to you to decide whether you want to call them competitors or somebody who's offering a similar product or service on the market. That's up to you. I know there's people who look at competition as more so opportunities to collaborate. But regardless, you still need to know what's going out there on the market with other businesses in your industry, particularly those who are similar to you in size. You do need to consider direct and indirect competitors. So let's talk about this example here. We have Postmates, Uber Eats, DoorDash, which are three companies or three delivery services. You can order food, get food delivered to your house from a restaurant. And they have expanded beyond that nowadays. GoPuff also, even though a lot of what you offer, what you can buy there is from their ghost kitchen. So food that they prepare in-house. GoPuff, by the way, was started by Drexel students, just like a quick insert. And if you think about it, restaurants do prefer to have people come in and sit down at the restaurant because people tend to spend more money in the restaurant than when they order. And as a restaurant, you may wonder, well, should I go the delivery route? And of course, most of them do, but I also have heard, since I've not worked in this industry, that it could be quite a headache dealing with multiple delivery services and delivery drivers, and it's just a lot to manage on the back end. there was research that showed that people actually use those delivery services instead of cooking at home, which immediately means that the delivery service is not so much a competition to the restaurants, that it's taking customers away from them coming into the restaurant itself instead of, and they just decide to get food delivered to their house. But more so, this means that your competition are grocery stores and services such as HelloFresh and Blue Apron that deliver ingredients to your house, and you can just cook a meal out of them. So in this case, the HelloFresh and Blue Apron services are an indirect competitor to the restaurants and not so much the delivery services. Even though obviously you do get money out of the delivery services, they do take a good percentage out of you. And as a customer, you pay sometimes delivery fees. And I personally try to avoid using them and go do a takeout where I can if I decide to order out. But my point here is the assumptions that you may be making and what actually is going on in the consumer's mind and why they decide to order out versus coming into the restaurant. Don't be all things to all people. Don't throw spaghetti in the wall and to see what sticks. Really stay true to who you are as a business. I'll provide 3 quick examples. GoPro, Garmin, and BlackBerry. GoPro started as a camera for surfers, and eventually it turned into what it is these days. People use it for everything and anything. Garmin, they started with the GPS devices. That was one of their most popular products, even though they do have products for navigation services for example, if you go on a boat. I recently found this out. If you go on their website, it's quite extensive, but they were mostly known for the GPS devices. And BlackBerry, their keyboard phones, which I thought they were very cool when I was in college. And then the iPhone came on the market, and what happened? People started using apps such as Google Maps, the Maps app that's incorporated into the iPhone. They start using Waze instead of a GPS device. And that GPS device eventually disappeared. Garmin had to discontinue the product. However, they had all that navigation system on the back end in their within their software. And they say, well, what do we do? So let's put the navigation services that we already have and put them in this Garmin watch. It gives you or allows you to be able to track your runs, your swims, your bike rides. If you do cross-country skiing, whatever you do, you can track. It gives you more details than an iWatch, for example. So I do know a lot of people who are more hardcore athletes and they go with the Garmin watch. But that was a very smart move. They were able to quickly pivot and say, we have what we have. How can we use it for a different device? And it was very successful versus BlackBerry, where they said, well, the business people will never give up the keyboard for a touch screen, which is what the iPhone is offering. And guess what? The business people said, no, thank you to the keyboard. We're taking the iPhone, obviously bigger screen, and you can still type, even though it's a touch screen. And BlackBerry had to discontinue the phone. They're still in business. They do cybersecurity now, but they were not flexible enough like Garmin to be able to react to what was happening in the market and even be able to predict what was going to be the result of the iPhone being introduced to the market, and they got stuck. So you can start small, but first be able to pivot when technological changes are happening in your industry, and second, gradually expand your offering to include more customers. Which brings me to this important point that you do need to create an ideal customer persona. Be as specific as possible. You may not be able to stay within those limits. You may have to not so what I'm saying is don't put yourself in a box. And if you have said my customer is female, but you have a male customer coming in and they cover all other bases, they check all other boxes, don't say no just because they're a male customer. Obviously, given that the product is appropriate for males, something that's like a more targeted at women, such as handbag, may not be appropriate for a male customer. But you get what I'm saying. Make sure you have negotiables and non-negotiables when it comes to your ideal customer persona, so you don't put yourself in a box. Also, you need to declutter, especially if you've been around for some time. This is a presentation is mostly aimed at people who are just starting out or the very beginning of their entrepreneurial endeavor. However, if you have been around for 4, 5, 6 years, have you thought about decluttering? How often do you revisit your marketing foundation? You have to think about your customers evolving. Do their needs change? How do you account for this? Do you actually do it? Do trends in the market change? How do you account for this? Do you do an audit of your social media to make sure it reflects your business vision and strategy? And is your digital content integrated? Your website, social media platforms, if you have a blog, a podcast, are they all integrated? Are you delivering the same message to your consumers so you do not confuse them? And finally, make time for self-care. What do you do to disconnect? For me personally, this is yoga. It has gotten me through some tough times when I was getting my PhD. And it's always there for me, even though there have been periods when I've taken a break. I usually, when I go back, I'm like, yeah, I should not have taken that break. And usually the breaks were not something that I did purposefully. It was just that things happen and life happens and it gets in the way. But ever since I had my kids, thankfully, I have a great support system, which is another thing that you need to make sure that there is around you as an entrepreneur, because it really takes a village, just like raising a child, to build your business. And I am able to maintain a regular yoga practice, which saves me, saves my sanity, saves just my ability to function sometimes and deal with what we have to deal when life happens. But do not put yourself second. You're the most important person in your life. Make sure that you take care of yourself so you can take care of your family, you can take care of your business. And if you have a full-time job, that makes things a little bit more challenging, right? So always, but make time for yourself. And if you want to connect with me, these are the ways. I've provided my email, IG, if you want to follow me for more marketing tips almost daily. And I've provided a link to my website. If anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, also, you can reach out and I'll share my link, or you can search for me there. Boryana Dimitrova, it should be easy to find. And I hope you really found this video helpful. I would be very happy to get any feedback, and hopefully I'll see you in the future, maybe as a client, as a partner, collaborator. And like I said, I really hope that you found this helpful, and I wish everybody who watched this best of luck with their entrepreneurial endeavors. Thank you.